So I'm introducing myself. I'm Kevin Knutson. I'm the president of the AVRF, and I really enjoying this conversation. Especially some of the comments you made, Christy, were really hit home. And one of the things that I'm looking at is the ability of our investigators here. Our catchment here at the University of Iowa is very European. And so we get dinged on a lot of our P30 study, our center studies, in that we don't have the diversity in some of our studies, and being able to draw upon these shared this data that's being generated from a diverse populations to add to what we're collecting here will be huge, and it really adding more power so it really kind of really opens up some of the opportunities. But from the from the shared resource, this is a challenge that we as core directors face every day. How do we educate our investigators on what's important, in addition to the data that you generated? What's the metadata that was associated with allow you to collect that information? And unfortunately, what I'm seeing is a lot of investigators have been left to figure out what's important to include. And this is where the shared resource has been really trying to play a major role in helping people understand it's more than just the data point. It's the context in which that data was collected is as important. There was also touched on the notion of you got to make it easy. As we all know, compliance is key, and to get making it easy, you're going to have compliance. If it's difficult and people don't understand the challenges, it's going to be hard to get folks enrolled. So one of the things we're looking at within the AVRF is developing best practices. What are, for these different technologies, what kind of data or what kind of information needs to be associated with your data set so that now it can be compared on an equal setting with a data set generated at another site. But now this is an exciting initiative.
To support data sharing and reproducibility, who performed what instrument on what experiment, what instrument standardization and maintenance, required controls and standards, documentation, tracking of buffers, reagents, components, lot numbers, version, expiration dates, and the location of the source data and the shared data. In the next slide, you can see that one of our challenges is the unprecedented growth in biomedical innovation and technology, which has been driving this relentless increase in data volume, velocity, and variety. It is driving collaborations for sure, but it's making management of research data an increasing challenge, and in order to meet these accelerating research collaborations and productivity. So within the scope of these areas of challenge, each shared research resource strives to optimize data and metadata as a product of the services provided. It's critical data that needs to be collected, and it's, at many institutions it's hit or miss, but I completely agree. And I think that's actually where this RRID could actually be very helpful in terms of an easy way to track the contributions from, a particular core shared research resource that is searchable, it's unique, and it's at least a good step forward.
To me, something like, or it could be the case, it seems to me that might be the case, that if there was wider use of, let's say, RRIDs in relation to biological samples, that would then enable, it would broaden out the utility of depositing in different kinds of repositories, because once you've got the RID associated with the sample, if that data and metadata, it doesn't really matter where it's deposited, because it should be easier to search it because you've got a standard RID which is associated with it. Do you think that's a plausible hypothesis?
Yes, absolutely. And it's just, getting people to do that. And that is actually a partnership between our, our funding stakeholders, journals, repositories, making that part of the requirement for the data set that is deposited.
Wait, can I just add something? That's such an
Please.
important part of the whole idea of knowledge equity. So a lot of the, you think about open science, it's actually it can be a privileged activity.
That's
Even
right.
though I think we all agree that it's important and worth the investment, it's very difficult for those investments to happen at, in various environments. And so that's one of the things that excited me the most about working on the Invenio RDM project, is because these institutional repositories are infrastructure that are very common for many of our institutions, but they require a development team, and they require maintenance, and they require data cleaning and curation and all, metadata supplementing on the records. And that is something that is not feasible for a lot of places.
Great. Well, if
Yeah.
it can, quote, democratize that capability, that would be awesome, because certainly we are, technology advances and it becomes more and more the haves and the haves nots about where you're sitting and what's available to you, right?
Yes.
And that's a real concern, because, those types, especially the non-canonical data types, right? What do you do with all these? We know what to do with genomic data. We know what to do with image. We have much better idea what to do with imaging data. But what about these other unusual data types, and how we maintain those and move them forward?
Yeah.
Great.
And of course, this addresses the, the diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Right.
that we have really tried to address in AVRF in terms of access to technology and promoting standards for intra and interinstitutional sharing to access the technology that then enables,
Right.
less technologically advanced institutions to have access. So
Right.
they do go hand in hand.